Maya, he said gently, you haven't got this straight. She looked up. This is not a reciprocal arrangement. It's not about giving you a kinky good time. If all goes well, I'll own you. Body, mind, all of you. If you're going to be my property, I need to know what I've got, what you're good for. Like buying a dog. Is it the right kind for what I want? Does it have the right disposition? Can it be trained? And today we are talking about As She's Told by Annika Jacob. I said that very confidently, but I don't know if that's actually how you say her name.
I think that that's about right. That's what I would say. I struggled with this book not
Mm-hmm.
because of the content. I struggled because of the writing style. So have you ever read Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's Tale?
No.
I feel like the writing style was like that, and I struggled because it was hard to determine like who was talking at
Who was
points,
talking?
what they were talking about. Like that's why it took me freaking forever because it was hard to stay within the story when I'm struggling. Okay, wait, I got to go back a page. Wait, who's reading? How does this transition? Like
Yeah.
it just wasn't the flow was not well done.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
that's the first thing I didn't like about it. The most basic thing ever. Okay, so let's talk about how you came across this book first before we jump in. I mean, we don't have to if you don't want to. I've never heard of this author. Like, she doesn't have a website. Like, there's nothing anywhere except for it
No.
won an award that you shared with me that I forgot.
Well, and I didn't realize it had won an award until I can't even remember what we were looking at. I pulled it up on Amazon. Which how is this allowed on Amazon and like other things aren't? Well, maybe because it's lacks popularity. I don't know. Anyway, I happened to see where it won an award. I'm pretty sure I came across it in the Bang Book Club Facebook group because I was looking for books with orgasm denial.
Oh.
And this was the one that one of them had recommended. And I was like, oh, okay, I didn't go into it blind. I did read the synopsis, but like and that's one thing that I don't remember when this was published, but I feel it was published like a while.
2016.
Okay, yeah, a while ago. So almost a decade ago. And I don't know that trigger warnings and content warnings and that kind of thing were like regularly done. And this is obviously an author that like didn't pursue it full time or is doing something else under a different pen name or something because there isn't a lot of works that she has. And I tried to read another one of her works and I DNF'd it because I couldn't handle it's kind of the same thing. Like I couldn't handle the writing style of it.
Yeah. I don't I understand why they recommended this, but it's not orgasm denial in a good way. Oh, well, okay. We should start with we're probably going to say some things that are not politically correct and they're going to piss people off. This should not surprise you if you've been with us this long for season, our second season.
Yeah, we cover a lot of like dark romance.
I okay, I think she mixed too many kinks and that bothers me. Like master slave is one kink. Then like the pet thing, I don't even know if there's a real word for it. Is there a word where you treat?
Yeah,
It's a pet
it's
kink,
pet
right?
play. It's
Pet
pet
play.
play.
I'm like,
Yeah.
and then, oh my god. But I mean, like, pet play is like one step close to bestiality, right? 'Cause bestiality is just having sex with the animal, but they're making a human pretend that they're an animal. So do they really want to be with the human or do they really want to be with the animal?
I feel like
That's where I get confused.
I don't think, at least in my in I can see where some you could argue that in some cases.
Like, I know part of it is like my ignorance because, I don't know because I don't live the scene, but I just feel like it's a fine line or maybe just I'm being weird and it's not?
No, I don't think you're being weird. I think when you get into like well, okay. Let me just I think the first thing we have to maybe establish, in my personal opinion, is that this book is not an accurate representation of a typical master slave BDSM relationship, in my opinion.
In books that we've read?
No,
Just in general.
in the scene. Yeah, even if you have a master slave relationship, there's still you have hard limits, you have boundaries. The quote unquote slave in the relationship has choices they make prior to going into it. Even if it's a complete power exchange. And
Mhm.
none of that existed here. She consented to give up her choice, and to give up, basically she consented to not consent, regardless of what it was.
I think you're right. I would hope that you are right. Okay. That would be my hope is that you are right. Yeah. Okay. That helps set the tone.
Well, and that's just based on just research I've done in the community over the years. You look at any type of BDSM, kink, whatever community, blogger, forums, whatever, and everything is negotiated beforehand.
Mhm.
BDSM is there's a consensual, safe, and there's another sane. CSS is what the BDSM community typically lives by, and it's consensual, safe, and sane. So there's a lot of things in this book that cross those lines. So again, I don't think you're looking at a typical BDSM relationship in this book. This is something that takes it well beyond sane or safe, even, really, honestly. So in the BDSM community, they have rules that the community lives by, and it's it has to be consensual, it has to be safe, it has to be sane. So for example, there's there's a act that you can see where they would have their slave or their sub or whatever lick shoes, but in case that can be not safe if you've been walking around in the New York subway or wherever. So you have to take into consideration is it consensual, is it safe, and is it sane, in order for it to be what the BDSM community deems true BDSM, or crossing into the line of abuse or, not typical BDSM, which is, I think, where this book lands.
So, I think this book calls into question if it were a real master slave relationship, because I think that's one of their moral dilemmas that they have at the beginning when they meet in the chat room is, well,
Yeah.
is it really a slave if I'm still making decisions? Because the
Right.
whole point is not to. So I think maybe this was written to challenge that or to show that it's not true. But mm, I, yeah, this book, man, it really fucks with your head.
I feel it's I'm so glad I made you read this. Also, sorry, but also thank you. Because I read it and I was okay until there. I'm trying to think. Once he took into consideration she did not want to be with women and he still made her be with women,
Mm-hmm.
that really bothered me.
Yeah.
Like I that was something that I was just I get it. I get why. I understand that she consented to not consent this entire time. Like, she gave up all of her autonomy.
Mhm.
And for her, like, if he hadn't forced her to be with the women, she would have felt like she had failed him anyway. So, like, you have, like, that dichotomy just fucks with me so much.
No, I don't think so because I think I agree. I did not like that at all because I think that he should have took her comfort into well-being on some of these things, and he should have been
Right.
able to read the signs because he's always talking about, "I need to be able to read her
He
to
did.
check." So if you can see that it's then you knew and you could have changed the parameters of what was taking place without her feeling that way or forcing her to feel that way. That's the thing. I
Yeah.
think a lot of it was forced to make her feel that way.
Well, I think for her, she wanted to give up autonomy in a place that she felt safe. For him, he wanted complete, utter control of someone in as many ways as possible.
Mhm.
And by him forcing her to do that, it was his way of asserting that right, quote unquote, to that he owns her. It didn't matter what her comfort level was. And that really, more than anything in the entire book, which has so many lines crossed, that bothered me the most.
That and the whole making her into an animal thing.
So I skimmed that, the last, what is that, like 100 pages, 50 pages, 75, something
And
like
when we're
that.
talking about when she's a dog, when she's a cat, or when she's a horse.
That once they go out to the country
Oh,
farmhouse,
yeah.
they're there for like 2 months. Is it 2 months or a month? It's a while.
About 2 months, yeah, July and August, I think. They make her into a
Okay, yeah,
pony.
yeah, yeah. That I skimmed through quite a bit because again, and less the animal aspect and more the like constant like force to perform for the women.
I'm surprised he even shared her at all.
I was too.
That I
I
felt like
under
that went against his grain.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
care
like
that they're his
like
brothers.
yeah. No, I didn't care for that. Didn't care. But again, I think it just goes back to him asserting that ownership.
I mean, but he didn't need to, he owned her, I'm ugh.
I completely agree. I think it actually lessened their like the building of their relationship.
Uh-huh. I I'm not gonna lie, it was hard to imagine some of the shit that they were doing and the things
Yeah.
that he put on her. I couldn't it was hard to imagine because 'cause I've never seen anything like that or read anything like this to this extent. I mean, I've read some master slave books before, but not I can appreciate his check-ins with her, even though she didn't like them,
Yeah.
but at the same time okay, so the whole point is she doesn't wanna have control. She doesn't wanna make decisions. She wants somebody else to do that for her. But I feel like
Right.
when you're in an environment like that for long bouts of time, you become conditioned. So even if you wanted out, you're conditioned to stay in.
And doesn't he mention that at some point in it, that she's going to get to a point where like she can't leave him, or maybe he doesn't.
I don't remember. I'm glad that they put a timeline on it.
Yeah, because the first like arrangement is a year, right? With
Uh-huh.
check-ins every 3 months or something like that.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah,
glad that he still allowed her to be outside of the house and to have friendship
a
and to
job
work.
and friends
So
and
that
yeah.
was that I feel like is a positive, but
Mhm.
I don't I d yeah, I don't I have so many problems with this book and this mindset and
Well, I think this is because I think I have the same probably issues with it that you do, but what I kept coming back to is she consented.
I know.
Like, it's what she said she wanted, and she continued to agree to the relationship every check-in. And even at the last check-in that you see in the book, she says she doesn't want the check-ins anymore. She doesn't want a way out anymore.
That I mean, she initially but again, like, I don't know, I think I could handle everything except for the pet stuff, her eating out of a dog bowl, her using the kitty litter box, him walking her like a dog outside in the backyard. That it I was never sucked into this book at any one
Yeah.
given moment. I was never curious. I was never with this book. I oh my, I just yeah. Yeah, I can't. I can't. I think maybe if it was I wanna say this is probably a lie. I wanna say if it was written better, it might have been okay, but I still don't think I would have been okay with it. Like, who the fuck was he
No, I agree with
texting? Like,
that. His
I
brother,
I
most of the
think
time. It was that
was it 7?
Sven.
Whatever. Yeah. Sven.
Yeah, I think that's who he was texting the majority of the time. I do think he texted that one woman that he worked that was on his crew for a while. I can't remember her name.
Val. I did not like her.
Yeah, I did not care for her either.
I was really
Yeah.
surprised that he allowed other people to be abusive to her too,
Yeah.
because Val was very I think everybody else was mildly okay. It was just Val.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if we just okay, so let's just walk through the book because I don't feel like I can, like, pinpoint things. So they meet in a chat room. She asks a
Mhm.
question that piques his interest of, "Is it really master slave if I have a say in it?" You know, it's a conundrum.
Right.
Catch-22, whatever. They meet at a party, they have instant attraction, they sleep together the first time, like, they date while she finishes her education, which I thought that that was really good. He forced her to finish. He's like, "No, your education is important. You're gonna study, da 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 da."
Yeah.
Like, there were some things that were just contradicting of him being in total control that he still, I don't know, maybe I just have a stereotype in my head that a master slave relationship, he wouldn't want her to have that education or to finish it or,
Mm.
the job or the
Now,
friends.
I think that's one thing that I actually liked about him,
Mhm.
probably one
The
of the only
only
things,
things
honestly, is that he did make sure, especially in the beginning, that he placed guardrails basically on the ramp up. Wow, went really far with that pun.
very accurate,
To
though.
yeah, yeah. I mean, to her actually moving in and living that 24/7. He gave her a certain parameters and rules, and she kind of learned a very small amount of what it would look like with him full time in the beginning while still having education. And that's one thing that has always intrigued me about true BDSM relationships is having a dom that has like your best interest in mind. So like they put rules on, like, hey, you need to eat healthy 80% of the time. You need to work out 4 days a week. You need to finish your essay on time. You need to, those types of things, and then you're punished when like you don't meet those requirements. And I'm just like, if I had somebody that was gonna like punish me if I didn't work out, I'd probably work out more.
Right?
you know? So with that kind of stuff, that type of relationship has always, again, intrigued me, where I'm like, okay, I could see the appeal there. So I really liked the setup, and I think that's how I got like not hooked, but definitely intrigued in the
Trick.
beginning. I was like, okay, you're tricked. Like, okay, he's really setting this up to like give her a choice to make sure that she is consenting to this relationship and ensuring that she still, gets her education, has her job, is doing what she needs to do on her own. And even when she moves in, like all of her money gets put in a separate bank account. He doesn't touch it. He doesn't even touch it for her stuff. He completely takes care of her for that year. And she would have an entire year's salary to go live her life if she decided to opt out of the relationship. So I think he set that up, or the author did a good job of like setting all of that up. It was, I'm trying to, the kitty litter box was definitely like, I did not like that at all. Yeah, I guess in that aspect of the pet play, like going outside, like all of that, I didn't care for. Like leash, collar, restraint, like all of that I can handle, but like
Mhm.
leave the potty stuff alone. Or go to the bathroom like a normal human.
Mhm. I mean, I would
Yeah,
have been okay still with the chamber pot, I guess. But that just
yeah.
there were so many things that just rubbed me the wrong way. That was the biggest one besides the end with the females. Like that just I don't understand how you find that attractive or
Well,
sexy
and
or
again, she really struggled with that.
I
Every time he would take
mhm.
like he would like really take treat her more and more like a dog or more like property. It was like the quote that you mentioned. Her self autonomy always reared up.
Mhm. Cuz it's human nature to do that as a human.
Right? Yeah.
I think another issue with it is once he's molded her and she becomes the perfect whatever idea he has in her head, what's next? Because I think it's more about the control and the molding her into it than it is her act
Hmm.
being it. And once she becomes it fully, what it, is he still going to want her?
Do you think that's even possible? Because if she was living it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, then I would agree. But he's insistent that she keeps a job, that she has relationships outside of their home. Like she's in that relationship, we'll say 18 hours a day, but she still has to go out in reality.
I still don't
So
think that.
I don't know that she would ever fully become.
I mean, that's quite true, but I'm with her on her thought process because, sometimes he could read her, she would be like, "Oh my gosh, she's not gonna want me anymore after this." And he would
Right.
subtly reassure her, "This isn't gonna change." But I don't know, it's like a gut feeling, which I could be wrong, obviously. But and I say that, and the only reason why I feel like it's reinforced is because at the end at the barn where he doesn't sleep with her, makes her sleep in the barn.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and I even though he kinda had that thought, "Oh, she's not here. How am I supposed to sleep without her here?" But he could sleep without her there, and I think that's the problem that I had, was that he was able to sleep without her next to him for 8 weeks or 2 months or whatever it was. That's a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so there's a disconnect there, and I think that's why.
Hmm.
There's no way if I was in a serious relationship or, in this not as serious as theirs, obviously, because that I don't think I could ever do that,
No.
ever. And I say never, ever, ever with with a steel. No, no, no way. Absolutely no. Mm-mm. Anyways, but if I was in, they've been together, it's practically been a year,
Hmm.
and you're okay, even if it's for whatever play you're doing. And that was another thing. Their big thing was, is, oh, we don't want to play games. We don't want to play mind games. Da 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 da. But then he ends up doing it anyways. Making her pretend to be an animal is play because she's not really one. Making her pretend to be a pony and drive you guys around for your fun because you want to go on a picnic is play. It just irked me. It
Yeah.
irked me. I was like, "You're lying." And maybe you don't think that it's play because whatever is in your head, but you are playing. Pretend.
Yeah.
Ugh. I don't think this
You're
is
the
gonna
only
leave us.
person I could have made suffer through this book with me. So
I mean, like, I don't even think I would consider this a romance.
no, I don't
It's definitely
no.
it's erotica for sure. It's not romance, it's
Yeah.
erotica.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
there was nothing, even though this book is gonna sit with me for a very long time, or us, I didn't connect to this book at all in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Some of the toys were kind of interesting, the shield and the chastity belt. I was really concerned he did not like having sex with her. There was more oral in this book, I think, than I have ever read, ever. I literally
Mhm.
think they only had vaginal sex, like, maybe 3 times. I don't even think I'm exaggerating when I say that. Okay, when she moves in, obviously, when she's at the apartment, I think they have sex,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
2 or
once
3
she moves
times.
in.
Once she moves in,
Yeah,
though, it's, like,
yeah, I
barely,
think
like, 2 or 3 times.
hmm. But again, I think for him, he gets off more on seeing how far he can push her, seeing how far he can like how much he can control more than anything else.
I don't disagree with that, but he used her mouth quite a bit.
Well, yeah, because he's still getting aroused.
Yeah, I don't know. And it, like, I didn't think, because I didn't read the blurb, you just told me to read this book, so I read it. Um,
Hmm.
so I had no, I mean, besides the master slave thing, I had no idea what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
So at first, you're kind of like, "Okay, there's the
Mhm.
cuffs, you know, there is the orgasm now where he puts her on the board and just lets her go for an hour, like, to punish her for getting off while she was in her sleep." Like, really? Like, dude, come on. Like, I get it, but at some point, I don't know, it was really weird.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot
I
of things to say, I just don't know what to say.
now I did, I think it's one of those books that like if you're going to read it for like maybe challenging your way of thinking or
Wanna fuck your way of thinking up.
or I don't know. But yeah, there were a lot of things. And like I guess that's one of the things that kind of bugs me that it won a BDSM erotica award somewhere because I don't consider this like what what I think if someone in the I would love to know like I want to talk to like a practicing dom or a practicing dominatrix and be like, I want you to read this. And then I want you to tell me all the things that are not going well. Like all of the lines that are crossed. Cause I mean, I obviously, I say obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but like I am not in the BDSM community. I have never been in the kink community. All I have done is research, in my own ways. But from everything that like I've read, this isn't considered true BDSM. So I would love to know someone in the community, like what their
S
opinion of it would
Okay,
be.
so again, this could be me not knowing, but I thought master slave was completely different from BDSM.
Well, no, not necessarily. Like you can have a master slave relationship within a BDSM relationship because BDSM is bondage, domination, sadism, and masochism.
Masochist, yeah.
Yeah. So you can have I mean there's a whole bunch of different types of relationships you can have within a BDSM
Okay.
community. You can do, you can have like total power exchange, which is what this is. But again, this is beyond what typical total power exchange is.
Mhm.
Again, you talk about your hard limits. You talk about, you know, the things that like basically you do like a red, yellow, green list. Like things you will like her red would be women. And that
Mhm.
happened all the time.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I got a lot rolling around in my head. It's really hard. Like, it's really hard to dissect and, like, dig in because 1, we're not a part of the community. 2, never experienced anything like that. So we have the stereotypes and the prejudice against what is right, what is not right. And so it just this book is a mind fuck.
Yeah. And
And
not
not
necessarily a good way.
that's what I was about to say. Yeah, not in a good way at all.
Yeah.
Like, I really when did I just finish it? Friday or Saturday? Almost a week it took me to read this book. Me, a
Yeah.
week.
Well, but like,
Because
yeah, the writing style sucks, but also, or sucked, but also like the material
it
is
was not enjoyable.
intense. Yeah.
I did not
I
find
think I stopped enjoying it after the Bluegrass Festival. Up until now, granted, like I think the Kitty Box Litter had already played at that point, so I didn't care for that. But I could I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll just skim it. But like after the Bluegrass Festival, I feel like it just
escalated very quickly.
yeah, and it like I didn't like everything after that point. I was just like, this doesn't feel like a
Natural
continuation.
or right?
Yeah, like it doesn't feel like a continuation of them building like trust, control, that kind of thing. Because I feel like up until that point, he was owning her in ways that like she received pleasure at some point.
Mhm.
Like in some way, in some scenario. And after the festival, all of her pleasure, I don't know that she got off at Christmas, but like that was it for the rest
Mhm.
of the book. So I'm just like, I don't like, I understand you want to own somebody, you want to control some. I can get that. Okay, I'll give it to you. Like everything leading up to that point, okay, I'm cool with it. But like even if you own somebody and you have like this type of relationship, they should still and maybe that was the point. Like they should still receive pleasure and satisfaction, and I feel like that didn't happen at any other point.
It almost felt like the author decided to change the trajectory of the
Mhm.
story without going back and, like, making it match.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
cuz
there was
like he had he was cruel at points up to that point, but after that point, to me, and I guess that's where I really started to struggle. It just became cruelty.
mhm, just for the sake of it. There no
Just
rhyme
for
or
the sake of it.
reason. Yeah.
And no reward. Like I again do she obviously gets off on pain, so I can understand it to an extent. But if you put somebody in that situation and you're constantly cruel and there is no reward, there is no pleasure, like that's when like I can't suspend belief anymore. Because
Mhm.
why would somebody continue to choose to be in that type of relationship? Even if they want that level of control, she still would have expected pleasure at some point. Or do you think she stays because the level of pleasure she gets when it's allowed? No, I can't see that. I
No.
can't see
I think because at this point now, again, that's what I was worried about, that conditioning of
the conditioning.
he
Yeah.
he's giving me what I want. I've never found it from anybody else.
Yeah.
This is now it's this vicious cycle of this is what I asked for, right? She's
Yeah.
conditioned herself. This is what I asked for, so this is what I deserve. And I don't think her friend Nikki was asking the right questions about it
Yeah.
because at this point, and I think maybe that was why there was that flip because now, hey, I'm a stranger. Here's my candy. I've already got you in the van. Like, Now I just need to shut the door. And once the door's shut, then I don't need to give you the candy no more. Right? I've already tricked you into being here.
Yeah.
But I do have to say, though, he was upfront with her at the very beginning. You will be humiliated. You will be degraded. Like, he
Yeah.
told her ahead of time, but knowing it and living it are two separate things.
Which I think he tells her too. Because he said humiliated, degraded, abused. Like he would be cruel for the sake of being cruel. And again, like there was plenty of that. But every time until after the bluegrass festival, she always got pleasure at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Like always. And
And
then
and before that, they also still had interactions of being in a real human relationship. I think that's also the starting point of where he wanted her less human, less
oh, that's
talking. See, this is why I'm saying, like, does he want the human or does he want the animal? I was really confused by that because after
that's a
that
really
point,
good point.
you don't need to be talking. Sometimes you're sleeping in the bed, sometimes not. You're at the foot of my bed. You're in
Yeah.
the crate. Yeah, I created a crate for you. That's where you're gonna stay. It's where he put her. Like, it was more into you are an animal and not a human. And
Yeah.
maybe that's why he doesn't do a lot of vaginal sex, because maybe he knows that it's a human, so that's why he only does the mouth, because then it would be really weird if, "Oh, you're a kitty cat and I'm fucking a cat or horse," or whatever. Like, I don't know. It just yeah. So I agree. That was a good point in the story of after that when he, like, flips a switch.
Yeah.
I really thought he was using her and was gonna betray her. I really thought it was all a setup for some research, and at the end, he was gonna be like, "Okay, I've got my research, we're done."
I think I would have hated that more than what actually happened, honestly.
Or maybe
Because
during the research, he falls into it and he likes it and he stays.
yeah, that would have
But
been
all
interesting.
okay, totally random thing that I hated about this whole entire book that really pulled me out is their fucking arguments about housing and politics.
That was very it's
What the
almost like she was like, "This book should have a plot somewhere. Let's put it here."
It's not even a
It's
plot.
like, no, it's not. But I think it was a way for the author to show how smart and educated Maya was. Like, even though she was turning into property, because
Yeah,
she's the one that ends up coming up with the final solution that actually works.
yeah. Anyways, total random. I hated that. It was stupid. I would pull all of that out. I skipped a lot
Yeah.
of that. I was like, but actually, it was really hard to skip. Like, you couldn't skip because the transitions were so fucking ridiculous. Anyways,
Agreed.
just a little tangent that popped up in my head as we're having this discussion of him turning her into an animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. Like, I don't even know what to do with this. I don't know if I would
I'm
ever recommend it to anybody unless they were
no.
like
Mm-mm.
legit looking at master slave for,
Even
like,
then,
purpose. I mean, I this is forever always gonna be the first thing that pops into my head when people ask about master slave. Nothing else I've ever read is gonna pop up into my head. It's going to be this one, okay? There's no washing it out of the brain. It's there, it is rooted, it has taken up space. I will never get that space back, okay? It's not going nowhere. This is one of those books that just stick with you, irregardless if you like it or not. I'm pretty sure, Jen, I guarantee if somebody said, "Hey, have you read any master slave books?" This is good. You might not say it, but this is the first thing that's gonna pop in your head is this
probably,
one.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it'll probably be the first thing that pops in my head. But no, I would never recommend literally anybody else
My
read this book.
No, my first question would be like, are you reading this for knowledge or for pleasure? Because if you're trying to read for pleasure, absolutely not. If you say knowledge, then I'm gonna be like, are you okay with a mind fuck? A legit mind fuck. Because if you're not okay with a mind fuck of a book taking root in your brain because it's never gonna go away, you cannot read this book. You just
Yeah,
cannot. You can read it for
yeah,
curiosity, but it's forever gonna taint a piece of your soul. Like, it just is.
yeah,
There's no way around it.
yeah,
I struggled with a lot. I struggled with this so much.
yeah.
I I need you to find who recommended this book to you so we can invite them on the podcast and have a discussion.
It wasn't even somebody that recommended it to
Oh.
me. I just saw it. in
The
the
chat?
Facebook group.
Because I don't think this book's going to go away for quite some time.
Yeah, okay. So we won't be able to invite him or her because it was an anonymous member.
Good for them, but upsetting for us.
Yeah. Yeah, they were anonymous. And she was asking because of the orgasm denial.
Well, you definitely get that in spades. He does not like her
Yeah.
getting off at all.
Yeah.
That was not hot. Man, the plate, man, it was so hard to imagine, like, and
Oh,
all the piercings down there, I couldn't even tell you what any of that was.
yeah. So I
Did you Google?
tried. I don't know what I don't know if what she created actually exists because
Oh,
he
okay.
had so many things custom made for her.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like I know chastity belts exist and that kind of thing, but I couldn't find anything close to what she described.
Okay.
So I'm like, is that like a thing? Because, and that was one thing that I saw in one of the reviews. I think that was like that when she was pierced, that was like a line that that reader really struggled with, and I didn't disagree. Like she's just gonna be strapped down with no anything and pierced how many times? 8?
6 or 8.
Yeah.
That was the least of my concerns. There were more. I mean, I understand that could be triggering, but there were more.
Oh, yeah, there were definitely more things, but and again, it wasn't something that I noticed at the time, but when she said that, she was like, I was like, "Oh, well, that's actually a really good point."
And the thing with the nipples, like he pulled and like tugged a lot on the
Mm,
nipples and
yeah.
like having them being weight. Look, I was in a lot of pain reading this book, and it wasn't even happening to me. Okay, I did not enjoy it.
Oh, it's funny.
I'm just, and yeah, the constantly being in the corset was interesting.
Yeah, like the corset and then whatever strap thing he had her in. I couldn't that was another thing I had a really hard time picturing.
I just thought it was a corset or like a bodysuit. I don't know.
I think she had to wear a corset along with some type of like strap harness thing. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, she had lots of harnesses at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, yeah. I don't know
Well,
what else.
thanks for suffering through this book with me.
You're welcome. It was an experience. I'll give you that. It was definitely an
Okay.
experience I will never forget.
That she wants to.
I appreciate the
I
caveat.
don't disagree at all. Like I said, basically I was okay with everything and even enjoyed some of the scenes up until after the Bluegrass Festival. After the
Yeah.
Bluegrass Festival, it just
Was not
I
my
couldn't.
cup of tea.
Yeah. All
Yeah, it
right.
was
So are
weird.
we ready to
To rate?
rate?
Yeah, because we could probably
Are we
talk
going
around
to
in
rate?
circles. I mean, yeah. So Darkness, I'm giving it a 5. It's horrible. And that's saying something from me.
Yeah.
Like, the relationship is toxic and abusive. Like,
Yeah.
the orgasm denial, the punishments, the treating her like an animal, like, fucking dark and twisted.
Yeah.
And not in the good way.
Yeah.
And then Spicy. Fuck, I don't know.
I mean, I feel like you have to give it a 5.
I'm not.
For
I, okay, so we have to talk through this. The Spicy, right? So yes, there are more than 3 sex scenes, but
It's obviously very kinky. And there's multiple partners.
I don't like this.
Well, okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad we're on the same page, Jen.
I'm trying to, again, like, okay, I don't know if I wanted this to go out publicly. Up until after the Bluegrass Festival, I loved it. Like, I could 100% be okay in the majority of the scenes up until that point.
Okay. I don't disagree
And
because
I
there
and I
was
think that's where my rating would come from. And maybe that's the caveat is like after the Bluegrass Festival, I don't get like I
yeah.
don't care for it at all. But up until that point, I was good to go.
Okay. No, I can agree with that. And I think that's part of the problem too is because we're left on a sour note.
Yeah.
That's where I go because it's the end. Like we forget cuz it's like a million fucking pages of crap and bullshit when you only needed like 300, maybe
Oh,
400.
100%. I don't even think no, I would say like cut the politics out.
Mhm.
Like I would okay, if I could rewrite this, I would cut the politics. I would have the scene where she's uncomfortable with the women. He picks up on it and cuts it. No longer shares her, no longer pushes her in that direction. Like you literally build on the control, the relationship, the rest of the time. I feel like she could have gone in so many other directions with it after the Bluegrass Festival, and where she went just killed the rest of the story for you.
Fan fiction, that's what I'm hearing that you and I are going to write together. Just saying.
I mean, because I feel like this concept of having somebody be in complete control, like I think it's so intriguing when it's done consensually, safely, and sanely. And I don't
Mhm.
think this book qualifies.
Yeah. What was his name?
Don't remember.
Yeah, I don't either. Is it
I
Thomas
can
or
find it.
Andrew or Andre
I think it might have been Andre
Anson? Maybe it's
Anders.
Anders. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I mean, yeah, 5, not willingly or happily, which I guess is the point of the book.
Oh, that was that was really funny. Or maybe I'm just really tired.
No, it
But
probably
that
was
was
funny.
really good. That was really good.
This whole ratings is not going to be what we want, but I will
So
concede the
5
5
for
stars for spicy.
spicy.
Uh-huh.
I find it very intriguing that this book's rating on Amazon is a 3.8 and has 247 reviews. I feel like that is a very high rating for
Such a small number of reviews.
such a small number of reviews and for the content.
I mean, hold on. What is this book called? As She's Told. I like the other cover better. I think it's pretty.
With her or with the chain?
Well, I like the chain, but I wish it
Yeah,
was
that's more.
green. I just don't want to
Yeah.
look at somebody's butt. Well, on Goodreads, it has over 1,800 ratings and less than 160 reviews. Oh, I'm sorry. It says it was first published in 2008, but on Amazon it says it was published in 2016. So I'm wondering if it's only available on Kindle. You can't get it as a book, can you?
I don't think so.
Well, that's even more interesting. Okay, so 2008. Sorry. I was looking at Amazon when I looked up the year.
Okay, I thought it was older. So what is that? Like 15 years? I can't do math.
I can't do math either.
I love this one review. I feel like It's very long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I feel like this sums it up perfectly. The first two words in her review says fascination, repulsion. and and that is 100, and like and she also sums this up, and I feel like I wish I could. Okay, I just want to make sure I give credit. So it's K8, number 8. Kendall is the publisher of this review, and at the end, she wraps it up really well. She says, "Do I recommend this read? Well, that would depend on who is asking my opinion. Are you wanting to read about alternative sexual lifestyles? Do you want something that will test your own beliefs and boundaries? Are you willing to be strangely fascinated, much like a train wreck happening in front of you that you cannot look away from? If you answer yes to these questions, then you may want to try this book. If you say no, then run far, far away and fast. This is not for you."
Yeah.
And I feel like that's pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. That sums it up. Thank you for reading that and sharing. And thank you, K8, for publishing your review on it.
See, like her review basically like covers everything I think we would want to say. Like this part, she says, "This book delves so deep into the boundaries and limits of a willing slave relationship that I cringed outwardly at sometimes. My stomach churned. As the book
Mm-hmm.
moved on, just when I thought it could not get any worse, I was mistaken. At one point, I wanted to cry for the injustice of it all. Yet, the character of Maya wants everything that is dished out to her by her chosen master in Anders. Throughout the read, throughout the read, Throughout the read, I kept marveling in the fact that this was basically a consensual relationship, one that Maya chose to have and chose to stay in."
I know.
And that's where I think the mindfuck comes in. Is like you're like, "Oh, this is awful," but you're like, "But she's choosing this."
Yeah.
Again, like multiple times she chooses this.
Yes. Oh, man.
And I think that's the biggest. So then, oh my god, I know we said we're gonna be like wrapping it up, but I think this is where my head went. And again, it kind of goes back to like I can be such a logical, literal person. I'm like, okay, I want to know her backstory. Like, how was she raised? Like, because he has a relationship with her parents, and she continues having a relationship with her parents. Like, she seems to have a healthy, normal relationship with her parents. She seems to have a healthy, normal relationship with the outside world. But like, is it like, and like kind of like what we talked about in the very beginning? Like, is this genetics? Is this did something terrible happen, and this is how she's dealing with it? Like,
Maybe it's just a chemical imbalance. I mean, I, d- I think
and
that
well, okay, I want to say, I don't think there is anything wrong with somebody wanting somebody else to be in control of the majority of your life. Like,
correct.
giving up that autonomy. Like, that's something that like I could not do it myself, but there are definitely things that I'm like, if someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, and I make the decisions for you on X, Y, and Z, and this is your reward," I'd be like, "Okay,
Yeah.
I'm good with that." So like,
Yeah.
I don't think, I think all of that is totally fine. I
Mhm.
think it's even normal for some people. I think again, I think this crosses too many lines for there not to be something. I hate using the word wrong, because maybe it is conditioned. I think maybe it goes back to being conditioned. Like, she was on it, like she was good with it for so long, and like he was giving her what she wanted. By the time it got cruel, she had already given so much autonomy up. She didn't even know how to get out of it at that point, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree with what you said, like having the control lifted. And I think part of the problem again is that she put too many kinks in here. And that's why the lines are not clear. That's not to say that people can't have multiple kinks. They can,
Yeah.
but it makes it very hard to have that boundary, that line, which is
Yeah.
why I think she was conditioned at this point. And I think even with his check-ins are not, at some point they're not enough, because her whole goal now is your pleasure. So why am I going to tell you something that you don't want to hear because I know you don't want me to leave? Which is why I don't think her friend Nikki was asking the right questions for a check-in, and that probably they needed a third party person outside of their relationship, their core friends, and maybe from the community, like where they met at the party, to do a mental safety check. Like, are both of you
Well,
okay? Not just her, but him too.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm actually a little mad at myself that I didn't consider him.
I mean, because can you imagine
But
having that much control and power over somebody? That goes to your fucking head. Like, and maybe that's why he had the flip switch. There's nobody checking in on both of them.
yeah.
He's surrounding
Well,
them with
and I
people who are, I don't wanna say intimidated, but if you put all their group, he's the dominant over all of them.
yeah.
There's nobody there to challenge him. Neither one of
Yeah.
his brothers would ever challenge him, and not in a
Well,
way that is enough to get through to him.
well, and I think part of why he wasn't more involved in the community is because it's not part of a typical or normal BDSM relationship,
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's like, yeah,
We could go on and on.
we could. I mean, but like, again, I'm glad I could make you suffer through this because I've wanted to talk to someone about this book and like dissect it and like psychoanalyze it so much. But there is literally no one in my life that I would let read this book except
Yeah.
for you.
I don't know anybody else except for you too.
Yeah. And you would not have, like, if you had read this first, I don't think you would have given it to me.
No, I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
No,
So
absolutely
I don't
not.
know what that says about me that I made you read it. Probably because
Yeah.
you are the dark. You are the dark and twisted one between the two of us.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I would have never. There is nobody I know. Actually, that's a lie. I would probably make my sister read it just so I could talk to somebody about it, but she wouldn't read it. I don't think that she would. So I would be
Yeah.
alone in my suffering.
Well, and just so we know that I'm a fair person, I did tell you, like, if it got to be too
Oh,
much,
for sure.
like 100%, I did not want you to continue reading it. Just throwing that out there for the audience so that they know I'm no Anders.
I mean, there's I honestly there would I mean, it was already rough to begin with, but the fact that you recommended it and the caveats that you gave, there's no way
Yeah.
that I was not gonna finish this, because this was a
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah.
The discussion made itself. Like,
Yeah.
there's just no way. So, it just took me a long time.
That's okay.
And yes, a
Okay.
week is a long time for me to read one book.
Okay, so darkness 5, spicy 5, with the caveat that like we find it a good spicy up until the until after the bluegrass festival. And so what's the rating?
So, I feel like it's gonna have to be a split rating. I was gonna say it was gonna have to be a split rating because obviously I was shocked by this
Yeah,
book. And so 5 is you shocked me. But
right.
then I have to think, if I give it a 5, because I do have people who follow my reviews, not that I'm like special or anything. Do I want them reading this book because I gave it 5 stars, even with the
Right.
split rating? I don't think that I can mark like 5 on like my Goodreads, because
Yeah, agreed.
I
You
and
do
they
not
can't.
want anybody going into this book blind.
Yeah, and I can't. I It's obviously not a 4. you know, a 3 is, yeah, it's good, check it out. Like, no. 2 is like, eh. And then 1 is no. Like, there's no, I can't give it
Well,
any
okay, like
stars.
I think it goes back to like our conversation when we rated Perfect Strangers. Like, just because it was shocking and even like a holy shit, you got us moment. For me, I think I said the same thing or similar thing in that episode. It like you don't get a 5 just because you managed to like shock the hell out of me. You get a
Yeah.
5 when it's done well.
This was
And
not
I don't
done
think Perfect
well.
well, and yeah, and neither was Perfect Strangers. So like again, I feel like this book had the potential to be a very interesting discussion on like how far does a master slave relationship go? Like how do you push those boundaries? How can you continue developing control over somebody over a long spans of time? Like I feel like there's so many different ways this could have gone and where she brought it just ex-nayed everything that came beforehand.
So with that, I would probably say a 2.
Really
A 2 or a 3. Maybe
interesting.
a 3. I don't know. It's
Why? Because it's fascinating, or
yeah.
because of everything leading up to Bluegrass Festival, or because it's fascinating.
I'm gonna say because it's fascinating, because I agree with you, everything up into the bluegrass. I while I don't agree or was on board, I could understand because it fit within the narrative that the author had created.
Yeah,
And it hadn't, branched off into fucking crazy town. And again, little things that we didn't like, which is with any book, there are little things that we don't like throughout the
absolutely.
story. So
Yes.
I think a 2 or a 3, but I also say a 2 or a 3 because irregardless of that, and we know this for me, I'm still tainted by the ending. It's tainted the whole story.
Yeah.
It has. So I don't know which one I would have to, and I'm definitely going to have to write up a review for this book. And within my review, it may determine which way I go.
There you go. Yeah.
Like I need the star rating to be an attention getter, but I also need the review to be like, I need you to read this first before you take in consideration what my
Go
star
dive into
rating
it.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you?
I think I'm probably gonna shock you. What do you think my rating's gonna be?
A 4?
I'm actually gonna give it a 1.
Okay, that's not shocking at all.
Oh, okay. Never mind then. I thought it would be.
The 4 or the 5
Uh,
on the shocking. Okay.
no, no. I think if I could rate, I keep saying like my quote out of this is going to be like, how many times every time I say up until after the Bluegrass Festival, you have to take a shot. We'd all be very drunk. I also wish I could quickly find like roughly what chapter or page number. But
That's the
up
one
until then,
that's the one
I
where he
would
locks
say,
her in the closet, right?
uh huh,
Okay.
yeah. Up until then, I would say it's a 4. Because, like you said, there's parts of it that I don't really like. Like some of it pushes, what I think would be acceptable. But, like you said, suspending belief and like kind of seeing like how the nature of their relationship works. Okay, I'll give it, 4 up until that point. The entire book, I can't give it more than a 1 because it's just too much. It pushes too many boundaries. It's too, even though she consented to the non-consent, her lack of enjoyment, willingness, whatever, to be shared with the women, like I can't get into any of that.
I was trying to find the festival. I think it's chapter 16, folk fetish.
You say chapter 15?
16. It could
Oh,
be like
16.
15, 16 cuz 15 is out of bounds. So literally the halfway point.
Really? Is it the halfway point?
Yeah, cuz there's only 33 chapters. Well, 33 is no end, but I did find the chapter titles interesting.
Yeah. 16. So
Hmm.
Well, and I guess actually now that you
Oh my gosh. Ugh.
what?
As I was looking for the chapters, I also found the popular highlights. And so one of the quotes is, "You seem to have forgotten what you're here for. You're not here to wallow in erotic trances. You're not here to float around indulging yourself in subspace. Your purpose is to serve me. Is that clear? You are a thing for my use. That's your function. Doing as I tell you. That's your first and only priority. Body and brain, sexuality, all of it, all the time, for me. Got that?"
That's when she loses track of her route back home and she ends up coming late.
Yeah, and forgot to call. No, she gets home on
Well,
time, but she didn't call him.
no,
Right,
she
Des?
came home late. She got home late because if she had called him and said, "Hey,
Okay, yeah, you're
I
right.
missed my stop," I don't think. I mean, the punishment wouldn't have been as severe, but because she didn't call him, yeah. So through chapter 17
This
is everything after that is where, and yeah, you're right. It's at 57%.
yeah. I might even go on to say, just looking at the chapter titles, that
Mm-hmm.
it might be chapter 24, Sea of Change, where there's a pivot, because that's at the point to where she was like, when she met Seven,
Sven.
whatever, I think this might be the part where she's like, he didn't say no, he had more of a tone that said, "Not now."
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Maybe, but I also found this other quote within that chapter because it's a popular highlight. "My fine piece of property," he kissed her up her throat, the side of her face, "my own thing." His voice was a deep, unhurried chant in her ear. "You're mine to lend, but you'll always come back to me. You won't belong to anyone else but me." A breath sighed from her, and her eyelids relaxed. He continued to stroke and croon an owner's lullaby. "All mine. I'll use you as I please. I'll use you and lend you and take you back. Mine." Absolutely not.
Okay, yeah, because in chapter 18, that's when Anders gets into the car accident. And that was one thing that Anders actually did really well is he set
Mhm.
up guardrails to if anything were to happen to him that because our readers don't know this. She has no way. Like once she comes home, she does whatever her chores are for that day, and then she has to lock herself in whatever he's decided for that day. And there's no way
Mhm.
for her to escape out of those binds. And those binds are typically some type of shackle, or she's locked into a wall or a crate or whatever. So like anything happens to him, she could literally starve to death. But he put the guardrails in place to make sure that she was taken care of if he were to, anything were to happen to him. So I think again that's something that like he considered when
Yeah,
entering this relationship.
he did get good on that.
Yeah. So yeah, somewhere around the 60-65% mark is where things go south.
Yeah, the vibe changes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm pretty sure we'll come back to this conversation with this book quite a bit. I'm wondering if this book is gonna beat The Ritual now and how many times you mention it.
No, I mean, this book fascinated me.
Oh, for
Like
sure.
fascinated me. Like I was so ready to psychoanalyze this book, and I've so enjoyed our discussion on it. The Ritual just straight pissed me off. It was boring. It had the same exact sex scenes. Oh, and that was the other thing. Like this book is erotica, right? So like,
Uh-huh.
but the thing that she did well is every single time there was any type of sexual scene, it changed.
Oh,
There was
yeah.
never a repeat of anything. And I think and that's one thing that like drives me crazy with other books that have a lot of sex in it is it's like it's the same thing over and over. Like the Ritual. Literally. It was just 500 pages of the same 20 scenes.
Sorry,
Stupid.
Jen. I love you. I didn't mean to get you worked up. That wasn't my intention. So
I do want to read, not the Sinner, whatever the next one was, the third one.
the third one.
All right, so you're giving it a 2 or a 3.
Probably a 2.
I'm giving it a 1.
Mm-hmm.
Unless I can rate just the first 60%, and then I would give it a 3.
I would say put that in your review if you write a review.
Not really. All right, audience. We do not recommend you read this book unless you want to be weirdly, strangely, disgustingly fascinated with the relationship. Otherwise, stay far away. But if you do read it, let us know where the darkness rates with you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us on the journey into the shadows of love, where dark romance stories come to light.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Bones of the Story as much as we did. If you did, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us.
And to stay updated on all things dark romance, follow us on social media. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
We'd also love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, ideas, or even your own dark romance stories with us. Drop us a line at bonesofthestory@gmail.com.
Remember, our next tantalizing episode is just around the corner, so keep your hearts open and your senses sharp.
Until then, embrace the darkness and let the stories continue to stir your deepest desires.
This is Misty
And Jen,
signing off
from Bones of the Story.